Kang Dae-ho straightened his uniform as he walked through the massive corridors of the alien flagship. The walls glowed with a soft blue light that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. He had been to many strange places during his years as a diplomat, but the Confederation ship still made him feel small. Everything here was built for beings much larger than humans. The reception hall opened before him like a cathedral made of crystal and metal. Hundreds of alien dignitaries filled the space. Some had multiple arms. Others floated without legs, and a few looked almost human except for their strange colored skin or extra eyes. Dae-ho had learned to keep his face neutral no matter what he saw. That was the first rule of diplomatic work. He was here for a simple trade negotiation. The Terran coalition wanted to expand their mining rights in the outer sectors. It should have been a routine meeting, the kind he had done dozens of times before. Sign some documents, shake some hands or tentacles or whatever the aliens had, then go home. Simple. A server droid offered him a drink in a container that adjusted to fit his human hands. He took it and pretended to sip. Another rule: never actually drink alien beverages unless you knew exactly what they did to human biology. He had learned that lesson the hard way on his first assignment. The crowd suddenly parted like water flowing around a stone. Dae-ho felt the change in the room before he saw the reason. Aliens who had been chatting loudly moments before now stood in respectful silence. Some even bowed their heads. She walked through the crowd with the confidence of someone who had never been told no in her entire life. Princess Velraya of House Korvath stood nearly 7 feet tall. Her skin was silver and seemed to shimmer under the lights. Glowing patterns ran along her arms and neck, pulsing slowly like a heartbeat. Her eyes were large and golden, with no visible pupil. She wore armor that looked both ceremonial and functional, decorated with symbols Dae-ho did not recognize. She walked directly toward him. Every step was deliberate. Every movement carried purpose. Dae-ho had met royalty before, both human and alien, but this was different. This woman looked at him the way a scientist might look at an interesting insect. The princess stopped in front of him. She was so tall that Dae-ho had to look up to meet her eyes. He refused to step back or show any sign of intimidation. That was another rule. Never show weakness even when you felt it. "You are the human diplomat," she said. It was not a question. Her voice had a musical quality to it. But there was steel underneath. "Kang Dae-ho of Earth." "I am," Dae-ho replied. He kept his voice level and professional. "And you are Princess Velraya. It is an honor to meet you." She tilted her head slightly, studying him. "I have a proposition for you. I am here to discuss mining rights, Your Highness. If your empire has concerns about the proposed agreements, I would be happy to address them through the proper channels. This is not about mining rights." She said it loudly enough that nearby aliens could hear. In fact, Dae-ho realized with growing alarm that the entire room had gone silent. Everyone was watching them. "This is about marriage." Dae-ho blinked. For a moment he thought he had misheard. His translator implant sometimes had trouble with certain alien languages. "I apologize, but I think there has been a translation error." "There is no error." Velraya's glowing patterns pulsed brighter. "I am required by law to take a consort before I can ascend to the throne. I have chosen you." The room erupted in whispers and strange alien sounds that might have been gasps or laughter. Dae-ho felt heat rising to his face. He forced himself to remain calm, even as his mind raced through the implications of what she had just said. "Your Highness, I am flattered, but—" "I am not asking your opinion," she interrupted. "I am informing you of reality. You will become my consort or your species will face consequences." Now Dae-ho felt anger replacing his shock. "Are you threatening humanity?" "I am stating facts." She gestured around the room with one elegant hand. "The Korvathian Empire controls 17 sectors. We hold significant influence in the Confederation Council. One word from me, and every trade agreement your people have spent the last decade building will collapse. Your colonies will be isolated. Your expansion will stop. That would be an act of war," Dae-ho said quietly. "No." Velraya smiled, and it was not a kind expression. "It would be politics. And your people are very new to galactic politics, are they not? You have been spacefaring for less than a century. You understand so little about how things work out here." Dae-ho clenched his fists at his sides. He wanted to say many things, none of them diplomatic. He wanted to tell this arrogant princess exactly what humans thought of being treated like pets or bargaining chips. But he was a professional. He had a job to do. "Why me?" he asked instead. Because humans are perfect for my needs, Velraya said. She spoke as if explaining something obvious to a child. You are considered primitive by Confederation standards. Your species has no political power. A human consort cannot threaten my position or create complications with other noble houses. You are essentially harmless. The word harmless stuck in Deho's throat like a bone. He had fought in 3 colonial wars. He had seen friends die protecting human settlements from raiders. He had spent 5 years in special forces before becoming a diplomat. He was many things, but harmless was not one of them. I refuse, he said clearly. Velraya's patterns flared bright. You do not have that option. Everyone has that option, Your Highness. It is called free will. For the first time, something like surprise crossed her alien features. Clearly, she had expected him to simply accept. Perhaps other aliens in his position would have. Perhaps they understood the political reality better than he did. You have 48 hours, Velraya said finally. Speak with your superiors. Consider what is best for your species. Then you will return here and accept my offer. She turned and walked away without waiting for his response. The crowd parted for her again, and within moments she was gone. The noise in the room slowly returned as aliens began discussing what they had just witnessed. Deho stood alone in the center of the reception hall. His hands were shaking slightly. He looked down at the drink container he still held and set it on a passing server droid's tray. Around him he could hear the whispers. Some aliens were laughing. Others sounded amazed. A few seemed almost sympathetic. But the message was clear. They all thought he would accept. They all believed humanity had no choice. Deho activated his communication implant. This is Diplomat Kang requesting immediate transport back to Earth. Priority level maximum. Tell the Council we have a situation. As he walked toward the docking bay, he replayed the princess's words in his mind. Primitive. Harmless. No political power. She had no idea what humans were capable of when their dignity was threatened. She was about to learn that there were worse things to be than underestimated. The trip back to Earth would take 3 days. That gave him time to think, to plan, and to turn this insult into something else. He did not know what yet, but he would figure it out. He always did. The emergency session of the Terran Coalition Council began exactly 12 minutes after Deho's shuttle landed in Geneva. He had barely had time to shower and change before being escorted to the secure conference room deep beneath the Coalition headquarters. 20 faces stared at him from around the circular table. Some were present in person. Others appeared as holographic projections from various parts of Earth and the colonies. These were the people who made decisions for all of humanity's interests in space. Governors, military leaders, corporate representatives, and senior diplomats. Each one looked either angry or worried, sometimes both. Admiral Park Hae-won spoke first. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that had seen 3 wars. Tell us again exactly what the princess said. Deho repeated the conversation word for word. He had already sent them a full report during his journey back to Earth, but they wanted to hear it directly from him. When he finished, silence filled the room for several long seconds. This is outrageous, said Governor Kim from Mars Colony. His hologram flickered slightly with transmission lag. They cannot simply demand one of our citizens like property. Actually, they can, Ambassador Choi Yuna said quietly. She was the Coalition's chief diplomat and had more experience with alien politics than anyone else at the table. We exist in their system now. The Confederation operates on power and influence. The Corvathian Empire has both. We have neither, so we just give them what they want. Admiral Park's voice was cold. We hand over Diplomat Kang like a tribute payment? I did not say that, Choi replied. I said they have the power to make this demand. Whether we comply is a different question. The economic impact would be severe, said the representative from the Trade Commission. She pulled up statistics on the central display. We have 17 major trade agreements that route through Corvathian space. Mineral imports worth trillions of credits annually. If they close those routes, our expansion stops. Some colonies might even face supply shortages. Then we fight, someone suggested. Admiral Park shook her head. Their fleet outnumbers ours 20-1. Their ships are more advanced. Their soldiers are literally bred for combat. We would lose badly, and that is assuming the rest of the Confederation did not join them. We are still the new species on the block. Nobody would risk angering the Corvathians to help us. Deho listened to the debate continue for nearly an hour. The arguments went in circles. Accept and lose dignity, or refuse and lose economically, or fight and lose everything. Nobody had a good answer. Finally, he cleared his throat. May I speak? The room went quiet. Admiral Park nodded. You are the one directly affected, Diplomat Kang. What do you think? I think the princess made a mistake, Deho said. How so? She showed us exactly what she wants and why she wants it. She needs a consort who cannot challenge her politically. She chose a human because she thinks we are weak and irrelevant. But there is something else. He pulled up his own data on the central display. I had our intelligence division dig into Corvathian succession law during the trip back. The screen filled with translated alien text. Their noble houses are extremely competitive. The princess has enemies within her own government. She needs to marry before her coronation. But any powerful alien she chooses could become a threat to her rule. That is why she wants a human. We are supposed to be harmless decoration. So far, you are just confirming what we already know, Ambassador Choi said. But here is the important part. Deho highlighted a section of the text. Corvathian law has something called the trial of houses. If a consort completes this trial successfully, they gain equal status with their spouse. They become co-ruler instead of just a decorative partner. Admiral Park leaned forward. What does this trial involve? 3 challenges: combat, strategy, and diplomacy. Each one designed to prove the consort is worthy of royal status. According to the records, no one has attempted the trial in over 3 centuries, because most consorts are perfectly happy being pampered and powerless. This is relevant how? Governor Kim asked. Deho smiled. It was not a happy smile. The princess thinks I am harmless. She thinks all humans are weak and primitive. What if we prove her wrong? What if I accept her offer but demand the right to take the trial of houses? The room erupted in voices. Some people liked the idea. Others thought it was suicide. Ambassador Choi raised her hand for silence. Even if you could win this trial, she said carefully, what would that accomplish? You would still be married to an alien princess and trapped in their political system. No, Deho replied. I would be co-ruler of one of the most powerful empires in the Confederation. Think about what that means for humanity. We would have direct influence in galactic politics. Our trade routes would be protected, and every species that thinks we are weak and primitive would have to reconsider that assumption. You are talking about turning yourself into a political tool, Admiral Park said, living among aliens, probably for the rest of your life. I was a tool the moment the princess made her ultimatum, Deho said quietly. At least this way I can be a useful tool, and maybe I can teach the galaxy that humans are not as harmless as they think. More debate followed. Security concerns were raised. Medical staff questioned whether Deho could even survive the physical challenges against aliens who are naturally stronger. Psychologists worried about the mental strain of living in an alien culture, but slowly a consensus formed. It was a terrible plan. It was dangerous and probably insane, but it was the only plan that turned weakness into potential strength. Ambassador Choi finally called for a vote. The decision was not unanimous, but it was clear enough. Deho would return to the princess with an acceptance, conditional on his right to attempt the trial of houses. After the vote, Admiral Park pulled Deho aside. You understand what you are volunteering for? This trial could kill you, and even if it does not, you will be alone out there. We cannot protect you once you are in their world. I understand, Deho said. Why are you doing this? Really? He thought about the way the aliens had laughed at him in that reception hall, the way the princess had called humans harmless like it was a simple fact, the way everyone in the galaxy seemed to think humanity was just lucky to be allowed at the table. Someone needs to show them who we are, he said finally, what we are capable of. And it looks like I am the one in position to do it. The Admiral studied his face for a long moment. Then she nodded. You will have support. Not officially, but we will get you what we can. Intelligence briefings on Corvathian culture and military tactics. Medical enhancements if you want them. Training advisors. I will need all of that, Deho admitted. One more thing. Admiral Park's expression was serious. If this goes wrong, if they try to use you against humanity or force you to betray us, you are authorized to extract yourself by any means necessary. We will deny all knowledge, but we will also do everything possible to bring you home. You are not truly alone. Deho felt something tight in his chest loosen slightly. Thank you, Admiral. Do not thank me yet. You have not survived the trial. Over the next 36 hours, Daeho went through the most intensive preparation of his life. Military instructors drilled him on combat techniques. Xenobiologists taught him about Corvathian physiology and weaknesses. Historians briefed him on every recorded instance of the trial of houses they could find. He barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the princess's golden gaze looking down at him with that mixture of arrogance and contempt. When the transport came to take him back to the Confederation flagship, Daeho was as ready as he could be. His few personal belongings fit in a single bag. He wore a formal diplomatic uniform, but underneath he had compression clothing designed to support his human frame against higher gravity environments. As the ship lifted off from Earth, Daeho looked down at his homeworld growing smaller below him, blue and white and beautiful. He wondered if he would ever see it again. Then he turned away from the window and began reviewing his notes one more time. The princess wanted a harmless pet. She was going to get something very different. She was going to get a human. The Corvathian royal palace made the Confederation flagship look like a modest apartment. It sprawled across an entire mountain, carved from stone that sparkled like black diamonds. Towers reached toward the purple sky, and bridges of crystalline material connected different sections in defiance of physics as Daeho understood it. He stood in the formal greeting chamber, waiting. The room was enormous, with ceilings so high they disappeared into shadow. Guards stood at every entrance, each one wearing armor that looked like it could stop a tank shell. They were not there for show. Daeho had seen the weapons they carried, and his military training told him those guards could turn him into vapor before he could blink. Princess Velraya entered from a side door. She wore different armor today, more elaborate than what she had worn on the flagship. The glowing patterns on her skin pulsed in what Daeho was learning to recognize as satisfaction. "You have returned," she said. "I knew you would see reason." "I have returned with conditions," Daeho replied. Her patterns flickered. "You are not in a position to make conditions, human." "I accept your proposal of marriage," Daeho continued as if she had not spoken. "But I demand the right to attempt the trial of houses." The room went so quiet that Daeho could hear his own heartbeat. The guard shifted positions slightly. Princess Velraya stared at him with an expression he could not read. "You do not know what you are asking," she said finally. "I know exactly what I am asking. The trial of houses is my legal right as a consort. Corvathian law is very clear on this point. The law may be clear, but the reality is not." She walked closer to him, and he refused to step back even though every instinct told him to. "The trial has not been attempted in 3 centuries. Do you know why? Because it is designed to kill those who are unworthy, combat against champions who have trained their entire lives, strategic challenges that would break the minds of most beings, diplomatic scenarios with no correct answer. You are human. You are small and weak, and your species barely understands how the galaxy works. You will die. Then I will die on my feet instead of living on my knees," Daeho said. "Is there a Corvathian phrase for that concept, or do you only understand submission?" Her patterns flared bright with what he was fairly certain was anger. For a moment he thought she might strike him. Instead she laughed. It was a strange sound, musical but with sharp edges. "You have courage, at least. Foolish courage, but courage nonetheless." She turned away from him and walked toward a window that overlooked the capital city below. "Very well. You will have your trial. But do not say I did not warn you." "I want it in writing," Daeho said. "Official documentation that I am attempting the trial voluntarily, and that its completion grants me equal status as co-ruler." "You do not trust me?" "I trust legal documents more than I trust verbal agreements with someone who blackmailed my entire species." She looked at him over her shoulder, and for just a moment something that might have been respect flickered in those golden eyes. "You are more interesting than I expected. Perhaps you will survive longer than I thought. A few hours at least." The formal engagement ceremony happened 3 days later. It was held in the great throne room with representatives from every major house in the Corvathian Empire. Daeho wore ceremonial robes that felt ridiculous, heavy fabric in colors that hurt his human eyes. He stood beside Princess Velraya, while an elder official read declarations in the Corvathian language that his translator implant converted into formal, archaic-sounding speech. He could feel the stares of hundreds of alien nobles, could hear their whispered comments even though they probably thought he could not understand. The translations came through clearly enough. A human consort. How amusing. She truly is desperate if she chose that creature. Look how small it is. Does it even understand what is happening? The trial will be entertaining at least. I give it 10 minutes in the combat arena. Deho kept his face neutral and his back straight. He had heard worse things said about him during his military service. Words were just air vibrating in patterns. They could not hurt him unless he let them. After the ceremony, there was a reception. Deho found himself surrounded by curious nobles who asked him questions that were barely polite. How did humans reproduce? Was it true they only lived 100 years? Did his species really evolve from animals that lived in trees? He answered with patience he did not feel. Yes, human lifespans were short compared to most Confederation species. Yes, humans were descended from primates. No, he would not be offended if they found human biology strange. Everything was strange when you left your own world. One noble in particular seemed determined to provoke him. Lord Thexrel was the commander of the Third Fleet, and apparently one of Princess Velraya's primary political rivals. He was even taller than the princess, with skin that was darker silver and patterns that glowed red instead of blue. Tell me, human, Thexrel said loudly enough for nearby nobles to hear, do you truly believe you can survive the trial? Or is this simply an elaborate form of suicide? I believe I will do what is necessary, Deho replied. Necessary. Thexrel made a sound that the translator rendered as contemptuous laughter. The only thing necessary is for you to understand your place. You are a pet, a curiosity. The princess will tire of you eventually, and when she does, you will be discarded like all useless things. Is that what happened to your last consort? Deho asked pleasantly. Oh, forgive me. I was told you have never been able to convince anyone to marry you. How unfortunate. Several nearby nobles made sounds that might have been shocked or amused. Thexrel's patterns flared bright red. I dare to speak truth to someone who clearly cannot handle it, Deho said. If you will excuse me, I need to prepare for my trial. Some of us have important things to do. He walked away before Thexrel could respond. His hands were shaking slightly from the adrenaline, but he had made his point. He would not be an easy target for their mockery. That night, Princess Velraya summoned him to her private chambers. The room was surprisingly simple compared to the rest of the palace. There were no elaborate decorations, just functional furniture and walls covered with screens displaying what looked like military reports and star charts. You insulted Lord Thexrel today, she said without preamble. He insulted me first. He is one of the most powerful nobles in the Empire. You are a human with no title and no status. Your insult to him could create political complications. Good, Deho said. Maybe he will remember that humans are not as harmless as everyone seems to think. Velraya studied him for a long moment. Why did you really accept this arrangement? And do not tell me it is for your species' benefit. I want the truth. Deho considered lying, then decided against it. I accepted because I had no choice. You made sure of that, but I demanded the trial because I refused to be anyone's pet, princess or not. If I am going to be here, I will be here as an equal or not at all. Even if it kills you, especially if it kills you. Death is better than spending my life as decoration. Something changed in her expression. The arrogance faded slightly, replaced by what might have been curiosity. You truly believe that? I know that. I spent 5 years in special forces before becoming a diplomat. I have seen people die for their dignity. I have watched friends refuse to surrender even when they knew they would lose. Humans understand that some things are worth more than survival. That is foolish. That is human. Velraya turned away and looked at one of her screens. The trial begins in 2 days. You should use that time to rest and prepare. The first challenge is combat. You will face champions from 3 different houses, one after another. They will not hold back because you are small or weak. They will try to kill you. I understand. No, she said quietly. You do not. But you will. She dismissed him without another word. As Deho walked back to his assigned quarters, he passed more guards and more nobles who stared at him with expressions ranging from curiosity to contempt. None of them thought he would survive. None of them believed a human could possibly complete the trial. That was fine. He had been underestimated his entire life, first for being born in a poor colony, then for choosing military service over corporate work, then for being human in a galaxy of aliens who had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. He was used to proving people wrong. In his quarters, Deho found a message waiting from Admiral Park. It was encrypted and short. All eyes on you. Make us proud. He deleted the message and began his final preparations. 2 days to get ready for a trial that might kill him. 2 days to show the galaxy that humanity deserved respect. It would have to be enough. The arena of houses had existed for 6,000 years. It was carved into the mountain itself, a massive circular pit surrounded by ascending rows of seats that could hold 50,000 spectators. Today, every seat was filled. Nobles from across the empire had come to witness what many were calling entertainment, though a few whispered that it was really an execution. Dai-Ho stood in the preparation chamber beneath the arena. He could hear the roar of the crowd above, a sound like distant thunder that never stopped. His assigned attendant, a smaller Corvathian named Pralix, helped him into light armor designed for mobility rather than protection. "The armor will not save you," Pralix said quietly. "The champions you face have trained for centuries. They are stronger, faster, and more experienced. No offense intended to your species." "None taken," Dai-Ho replied. He stretched his arms and tested the range of motion. The armor felt strange but not restrictive. "Tell me about the champions. First is Corvin of House Malthar. He is a weapons master, 7 feet tall, 4 arms, expert with blade and projectile weapons. He has killed 12 challengers in formal duels. Weaknesses." Pralix hesitated. "House Malthar warriors are aggressive. They prefer direct confrontation. Also, beings with 4 arms sometimes have difficulty coordinating defensive postures when attacked from multiple angles simultaneously." Dai-Ho filed that information away. "And the second?" "Telker of House Vestra. She is a grappler, 8 feet tall, immensely strong, with an exoskeleton that can deflect most blade weapons. She prefers to crush opponents rather than cut them." Weaknesses? Her size makes her slower than smaller opponents. Her exoskeleton is strong but has joints that are vulnerable. Between the plates, if you could strike there, Pralix trailed off. "But you would need to get very close, and if she catches you, she will break every bone in your body." "Understood." "The third? Zalamor of House Thexrel." Pralix's patterns flickered with what might have been anxiety. "He is Lord Thexrel's personal champion, a striker, trained in unarmed combat. He is fast, very fast, and his strikes can shatter stone. He has never lost a fight." "There is always a first time," Dai-Ho said. The attendant looked at him with something that might have been pity. "I have prepared death poems for 7 different species over my years of service here. Would you like me to compose one for humans as well?" "Save your poetry. I plan to survive." A horn sounded above, deep and resonant. Pralix stepped back. "It is time. May your ancestors watch over you." "My ancestors are probably betting against me," Dai-Ho muttered. He walked toward the tunnel that led to the arena floor. The light at the end of the tunnel was blinding after the dim preparation chamber. Dai-Ho emerged into the arena, and the crowd noise washed over him like a physical force. Thousands of aliens screamed and cheered, though whether they were cheering for him or for his death he could not tell. Princess Velraya sat in the royal box, elevated above the common seating. She wore full ceremonial armor today and her patterns glowed bright blue. Even from across the arena, Dai-Ho could feel her eyes on him. The announcer's voice boomed across the arena, translated into dozens of languages simultaneously. "The human consort has chosen to prove his worth through the trial of houses. First challenge, combat. He will face 3 champions, 1 from each of the great houses." The crowd roared louder. Dai-Ho walked to the center of the arena. The ground was packed earth, stained dark in places where blood had soaked in over centuries. He tried not to think about that. A gate opened on the opposite side. Corvin emerged, and Dai-Ho understood immediately why Pralix had been so worried. The champion was massive, nearly 7 feet of muscle and chitin armor. His 4 arms each held a different weapon, 2 curved blades, a spear, and what looked like a weighted net. The crowd went silent. Corvin raised his weapons in salute, then charged. Dai-Ho had been in many fights during his military service. He had fought against trained soldiers, desperate colonists, and even a few aliens. But he had never fought anything like this. Corvin moved with terrifying speed for something so large. The weapons came at Dai-Ho from 4 different angles simultaneously. He dove and rolled, feeling a blade pass so close to his head that it cut a few hairs. The spear stabbed into the ground where he had been standing. Dai-Ho came up running, circling to put distance between them. "Stand and fight, little human," Corvin bellowed. The crowd cheered. Daeho ignored the taunts. He was analyzing, calculating. 4 arms meant 4 weapons, but also 4 points of coordination. Prelix had been right about that. He needed to create chaos, to attack from angles that would make that coordination difficult. Corvin charged again. This time Daeho did not run. He waited until the last possible second, then dropped and slid directly between the champion's legs. As he passed underneath, he struck upward with his elbow, hitting the back of Corvin's knee joint. The champion stumbled but did not fall. He spun faster than Daeho expected, bringing 2 blades around in a horizontal slash. Daeho barely ducked under them. He grabbed a handful of arena dirt and threw it directly at Corvin's eyes. The champion roared in anger and surprise. His weapon swung wildly, trying to catch Daeho while he was blinded. But Daeho was already moving, staying just out of reach, letting Corvin's own momentum and confusion work against him. When Corvin cleared his eyes, he found Daeho standing 20 feet away, calm and ready. The crowd was no longer cheering. They were silent, watching something they had not expected. A fight. "You fight without honor," Corvin snarled. "I fight to win," Daeho replied. "Is there a difference?" The champion attacked again, more cautious this time. But caution made him slower. Daeho used the environment, forcing Corvin to maneuver around obstacles, making his 4 arms work against each other in the confined spaces. When Corvin extended too far with a spear thrust, Daeho grabbed the weapon and yanked, using the champion's own strength to pull him off balance. The fight lasted 8 minutes. To Daeho, it felt like hours. Every muscle burned. Every breath was fire in his lungs. But slowly, methodically, he wore Corvin down. A strike to the elbow joint, making one arm drop its weapon. A kick to the ankle that created a limp. Another handful of dirt at exactly the right moment. Finally, when Corvin swung with his remaining blade, Daeho stepped inside the arc of the attack. He grabbed the champion's arm with both hands and used a joint lock that would have made his old combat instructor proud. Corvin bellowed in pain as his own arm was forced backward at an unnatural angle. "Yield," Daeho said quietly. For a moment he thought the champion would refuse. Then Corvin dropped his weapons. "I yield." The crowd exploded in noise. Daeho released Corvin and stepped back. The champion looked at him with what might have been respect, then limped toward the exit gate. Daeho did not have time to rest. The second gate was already opening. Thelcor emerged, and she was even larger than Corvin. Her exoskeleton was dark gray and covered in old battle scars. She did not carry weapons. She did not need them. The second fight was brutal. Thelcor was slow, but when she got her hands on Daeho, the pain was extraordinary. She threw him across the arena like he weighed nothing. He hit the ground hard enough to see stars. Only his armor kept his ribs from breaking, but he got back up. Always got back up. That was the human way. He studied her movements, looking for patterns. Found them. When she grabbed with her left arm, her right shoulder plate lifted slightly, exposing a joint. When she tried to crush him in a bear hug, her neck was unprotected. Daeho stopped trying to avoid her entirely. Instead, he let her grab him, then struck at the exposed joints before she could apply her full strength. It was dangerous. Every time she caught him, he risked serious injury. But slowly, her movements became slower as damaged joints accumulated. The finish came when he managed to climb onto her back and apply pressure to a nerve cluster Prelix had mentioned. Thelcor roared and thrashed, trying to throw him off, but Daeho held on with every ounce of strength he had left. Finally, she collapsed forward and tapped the ground 3 times. Submission. Daeho rolled away and stood on shaking legs. His armor was cracked. Blood ran from cuts on his arms and face. He was fairly certain at least one rib was cracked despite the armor. The third gate opened. Zalmor stepped out, and this time Daeho felt real fear. The champion moved like liquid, every motion perfect. He bounded across the arena in seconds, and his first strike nearly took Daeho's head off. The third fight was the hardest. Zalmor was everything the others had been, plus speed and technique. Daeho gave ground, taking hits he could not avoid, desperately looking for any weakness. He found it in overconfidence. Zalmor thought the fight was over. He saw a bleeding, exhausted human and assumed victory. When he moved in for a finishing strike, Daeho did something that went against all his training. He moved toward the attack instead of away from it. Got inside Zalmor's reach where those perfect strikes could not land properly. At close range, desperation became advantage. Daeho used every dirty trick he knew. Headbutts, elbow strikes, knee attacks to nerve clusters. Fighting that would have gotten him disqualified in any formal military combat trial. When Zalmor finally fell, unconscious from a strike to his temple, the arena was absolutely silent. Then Princess Velraya stood. She began to applaud, slow and deliberate. The sound carried across the arena. 1B Deho spent 3 days in medical recovery. The Korvathian doctors were fascinated by human physiology, constantly scanning him with devices that made strange humming sounds. They healed his injuries with technology that seemed like magic, though they warned him that the accelerated healing would leave him exhausted for days afterward. Princess Velraya visited him on the 2nd day. She stood in the doorway of the medical chamber, watching as attendants applied regenerative gel to the last of his cuts. "You should not have survived," she said without greeting. "I am full of surprises," Deho replied. His voice was rough from dehydration. "This is not a joke. Those champions have killed experienced warriors. Corvin alone has defeated 12 challengers, most of them from species naturally stronger than humans. Then I guess I fight smarter, not harder." She walked into the room and dismissed the attendants with a gesture. When they were alone, she sat in a chair beside his medical bed. It was the most informal he had ever seen her. "Your combat was chaotic," she said. "You used techniques that would be considered dishonorable by our standards. Throwing dirt, attacking joints, targeting nerve clusters. Is there a complaint in there somewhere?" "No." She looked directly at him and her patterns pulsed with something he could not identify. "I'm trying to understand how your mind works. Korvathians trained for centuries to achieve what you did in minutes through adaptation and desperation. Humans are good at adaptation," Deho said. "We had to be. Our planet tried to kill us for millions of years before we got smart enough to survive it. Then we tried to kill each other for thousands more years. We learned to think fast or die. Your species' history is violent. So is yours from what I've read." Velraya tilted her head in acknowledgement. "True, but we evolved past our violent phase. Your people are still young. Young does not mean weak." "No," she agreed quietly. "I am beginning to understand that." On the 4th day, Deho was cleared for the 2nd challenge. The strategy trial would take place in the war simulation chambers deep beneath the palace. Unlike the combat challenge, there would be no audience. Only the judges and Princess Velraya would witness this test. The simulation chamber was a spherical room with walls that displayed space in 3 dimensions. Stars, planets, and fleet positions floated around them as if they were standing in the void itself. Deho felt his stomach turn slightly from the vertigo. 3 judges sat in elevated observation positions. Lord Thexerl was among them, and his expression made it clear he hoped Deho would fail. The other 2 judges were military commanders that Deho did not recognize. The chief judge explained the challenge. "You will command a fleet in simulated battle against our finest tactical AI. The AI has been programmed with strategies from 1,000 years of Korvathian military doctrine. It has never been defeated. You must win or at minimum achieve a strategic draw. Do you understand?" "I understand," Deho said. "You may request any resources or information you need for planning. I want access to human military historical databases," Deho said immediately. "All of them," Lord Thexerl laughed. "You think your primitive warfare knowledge will help against Korvathian tactical superiority?" "Let us find out," Deho replied. The judges consulted briefly, then agreed. Within an hour, Deho had access to millions of files on human military history, wars, battles, tactical analyses, strategic doctrines from every human culture and era. He spent the rest of the day absorbing as much as he could. Princess Velraya found him in the archive chamber late that night, surrounded by holographic displays showing ancient human conflicts. The Battle of Cannae, the Mongol invasions, blitzkrieg tactics from the Second World War, guerrilla warfare from a dozen colonial conflicts. "You should be resting," she said. "I will rest after I win." Deho gestured at the displays. "Your people fight with honor and discipline. Formations, doctrine, predictable strategies based on thousands of years of refinement. That is called civilization. That is called being predictable." He pulled up a new display, showing an ancient battle where a smaller force had defeated a larger one through deception and rapid movement. Humans learned early that following the rules gets you killed. We learned to cheat, to improvise, to do the unexpected. And you think that will work against a tactical AI that knows every possible strategy? It knows every Corvathian strategy, Deho corrected. It does not know human strategies because you have never fought us. Your AI is about to get an education. The simulation began the next morning. Deho stood in the center of the spherical chamber, surrounded by holographic representations of fleets. His forces were outnumbered 3-1, another deliberate disadvantage built into the test. The AI attacked with perfect Corvathian doctrine. A strong center formation flanking wings, reserve forces held back for exploitation. It was textbook warfare, the kind taught in every military academy across the empire. Deho smiled and immediately ordered his fleet to retreat. The judges stirred in their observation positions. Retreat was considered shameful in Corvathian culture, done only when defeat was certain. But Deho was not trying to be honorable. He was trying to win. His ships fell back in apparent disarray and the AI pursued confidently. Deho continued to retreat, drawing the enemy deeper into the engagement space. The AI's formation began to stretch as faster ships outpaced slower ones, pulled forward by the seeming rout. Then Deho stopped retreating and attacked, but not at the center. He hit the enemy's supply line, the vulnerable support ships that every fleet needed but that were always positioned in safe rear areas. The AI had not expected an attack there because it violated standard doctrine. While the AI scrambled to redirect forces to protect its logistics, Deho's main fleet circled around using a gravity well for acceleration. By the time the AI realized what was happening, Deho's ships were behind its main formation, firing into the unprotected rear arcs. The AI adapted, as it was designed to do. It pivoted its formation and brought overwhelming firepower to bear. But Deho had already moved on to the next phase. His ships scattered, breaking into small groups that harassed the enemy from multiple directions. Hit and run, ambush and retreat, never staying still long enough for the AI to bring its superior numbers to bear effectively. The simulation ran for 6 hours. The judges watched in growing astonishment as Deho employed tactics that seemed insane by Corvathian standards. He retreated when he should attack, attacked when he should defend, sacrificed valuable ships to achieve seemingly minor advantages that only revealed their importance hours later. The AI grew frustrated, if a computer program could be said to feel frustration. It made mistakes trying to predict what Deho would do next. It committed too many forces to one area, leaving another vulnerable. It wasted time repositioning for battles that never materialized. When the simulation finally ended, Deho's fleet had suffered 40% losses. But the AI's fleet had been completely destroyed. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then the chief judge spoke, his voice carefully neutral. The human consort is declared victorious in the strategy challenge. Lord Thexerel stood abruptly. This is ridiculous. He did not fight with honor. He used cowardly tactics, retreat, deception. He used winning tactics, Princess Velraya interrupted. Her voice was cold and clear. The challenge was to defeat the AI, not to follow our traditions. He succeeded where hundreds of our own officers have failed. Or are you suggesting that our trial of houses is not a legitimate test, Lord Thexerol? The Lord's patterns flared red, but he said nothing. He could not question the validity of the trial without questioning the entire royal succession system. After the judges dismissed them, Velraya walked with Deho through the palace gardens. The alien plants glowed softly in the evening light, and the air smelled of something like cinnamon mixed with ozone. You embarrassed Lord Thexerol today, she said. He will not forget that. Good. Maybe he will stop underestimating humans. You truly believe you can complete the third challenge as well? Deho looked at her. They had spent more time together over the past week, and he was beginning to see past her arrogant exterior. There was loneliness there and burden. She was not just a princess playing political games. She was someone trying to hold an empire together while surrounded by rivals who wanted her to fail. I believe I can try, he said. That is all anyone can do. Why are you really doing this? She asked quietly. The truth this time, I told you. For my species, no. She stopped walking and turned to face him. There is something else. I see it in how you fight, how you plan. You are not just trying to win respect for humanity. You are trying to prove something to yourself. Deho was quiet for a moment. I lost my family when I was 16. Raiders attacked our colony. I survived because I was not home. By the time I got there, everyone was dead. My parents, my younger brother, my neighbors, everyone. I am sorry. I joined the military the next day, spent 5 years hunting raiders, protecting other colonies. Then I became a diplomat because I thought I could do more good preventing wars than fighting them. But sometimes, he trailed off. Sometimes what? Sometimes I wonder if I am doing enough. If I am strong enough. The Grand Council chamber was designed to intimidate. It rose 5 stories high with balconies on every level, where noble houses could observe the proceedings below. Ancient banners hung from the ceiling, representing thousands of years of Corvathian dominance across the stars. At the center of it all was a circular floor where the accused, the honored, or in this case the tested, would stand. Deho stood in that circle now, wearing formal diplomatic robes that had been adjusted for his human frame. Around him, hundreds of Corvathian nobles watched from their balconies. Princess Velraya sat in the royal box, her expression carefully neutral. Lord Thexerl sat opposite her, looking eager. The chief judge descended from the highest balcony, his robes trailing behind him. He was ancient even by Corvathian standards, his silver skin faded to almost white, his patterns barely glowing. The third and final challenge of the trial of houses is diplomacy, the judge announced. His voice carried through the chamber without amplification. You will be presented with a scenario that has no solution. 3 client states of the empire are at war with each other. Each has legitimate grievances. Each has powerful supporters among the noble houses. You must negotiate peace without favoring any side. This is the test that has broken the minds of our finest diplomats. Begin. Holographic displays materialized around Deho, showing 3 different alien species and their worlds. The miners, a species of crystalline beings who extracted valuable minerals from asteroid fields. The traders, a spacefaring merchant culture that controlled the shipping lanes. The zealots, a religious group that claimed the entire sector as sacred space granted to them by their gods. The miners accused the traders of unfair pricing and monopolistic practices. The traders accused the miners of stealing from cargo ships. The zealots accused both groups of defiling sacred space and demanded they leave entirely. All 3 groups had been fighting for 10 years. Thousands had died. The economy of the entire sector was collapsing, and behind it all, Deho could see something else in the data. The conflict was being maintained deliberately. The Corvathian Empire profited from the chaos. While the 3 groups fought each other, they could not unite against their imperial overlords. The weapons they bought, the ships they destroyed, the resources they wasted, all of it flowed back to the Empire's economy. It was brilliant in a cruel way. Keep them fighting so they stayed weak. Deho spent the first 2 hours reviewing the data, asking questions, requesting historical records. The judges allowed it all. Previous challengers had tried everything. Some attempted to broker compromise agreements that fell apart immediately. Others tried to impose peace through force only to create more resentment. A few had simply chosen the most powerful side and declared them the winner, which violated the spirit of the challenge. On the 3rd hour, Deho called for formal negotiation sessions to begin. Representatives from all 3 groups appeared as holograms in the chamber. They immediately began shouting at each other. "You steal from our ships," the trader representative accused. "You price gouge our people," the miner representative shot back. "Both of you defile sacred space," the zealot representative declared. "You should not even be here." Deho let them argue for 15 minutes. He watched, listened, and noticed something. They were performing. These representatives had been in similar negotiations dozens of times before. They knew their lines. They knew how this would end, with nothing resolved and the fighting continuing. "Enough," Deho said finally. His voice was quiet, but something in his tone made them all stop talking. "Who are you to demand silence?" the zealot representative asked. "I am someone who does not benefit from your war," Deho replied, "which makes me different from most people in this chamber." The nobles stirred on their balconies. Lord Thexerl leaned forward, his patterns glowing with interest. "What do you mean?" the minor representative asked cautiously. "I mean, this conflict has been going on for 10 years. In that time, you have purchased weapons worth billions of credits from Corvathian manufacturers. You have lost ships that need to be replaced from Corvathian shipyards. You have borrowed money at high interest rates from Corvathian banks. And the Empire has done nothing to actually stop the fighting because the fighting is profitable." The chamber erupted in angry voices. Nobles shouted denials. Some demanded Deho be removed for insulting the Empire, but the three holographic representatives had gone very quiet. Are you suggesting, the traitor representative said slowly, that our conflict is being deliberately maintained? I am saying that if I wanted to keep three potentially troublesome groups weak and dependent, I would do exactly what the Empire has done. Sell weapons to all sides. Offer mediation that never quite works. Keep you focused on each other instead of on who benefits from your fighting. This is outrageous. Lord Thexral stood from his position. You accuse the Empire of manipulation and exploitation. This is treason against the throne. No. Princess Velraya's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. She stood slowly, her patterns glowing bright blue. It is truth. An uncomfortable truth that we have avoided speaking aloud for generations. The chamber went silent. Every eye turned to the princess. My consort is correct, she continued. We have profited from this conflict. We have maintained it through deliberate inaction. The question is not whether he speaks truth. The question is what we do about it. You would side with this human against your own people? Thexral demanded. I side with justice over convenience, Velraya replied. As should any ruler worthy of the throne. Deho turned back to the three holographic representatives. Here is what I propose. Not peace between you while you remain client states. That will never last because the underlying problem is not your grievances with each other. The problem is your relationship with the Empire. What are you suggesting? The miner asked. An alliance. The three of you together, independent from the Empire. Pool your resources. The miners have raw materials. The traders have ships and trade networks. The zealots have population and agricultural production. Together you would be strong enough that the Empire would have to treat you as equals rather than subjects. That is rebellion, someone shouted from the balconies. That is evolution, Deho corrected. The Empire can choose to adapt or can choose to try crushing three groups that would be stronger together than they ever were apart. But either way, the days of profiting from this manufactured conflict are over. The three representatives looked at each other. Deho could see calculations happening behind their eyes. Then slowly the traitor representative nodded. I would hear more of this proposal. As would I, the miner agreed. The zealot representative was quiet longer, then spoke. Our gods teach that truth is sacred. If the Empire has deceived us, then perhaps, yes, I would hear more. Lord Thexral's patterns flared violent red. This is unacceptable. The trial of houses is meant to test diplomatic skill within our system, not to dismantle it. I call for immediate disqualification and execution for treason. You call for what? Velraya's voice was dangerously quiet. Execution? This human has encouraged rebellion, insulted the Empire, and violated every principle the trial is meant to uphold. The chamber exploded in debate. Some nobles agreed with Thexral. Others surprisingly sided with Velraya. The three holographic representatives watched with growing interest as the Korvathians argued among themselves. Finally, the ancient chief judge raised his hand for silence. When the chamber quieted, he spoke. The challenge was to negotiate peace without favoring any side. The human consort has done this. He has found a solution that treats all three groups equally, by changing the game entirely. It is unorthodox. It is dangerous to the traditional order. But it is also brilliant, he paused. I declare the human victorious in the diplomatic challenge. No. Thexral's shout echoed through the chamber. I will not accept this. The trial is a mockery. This human has made fools of us all. The only fool here is you, Velraya said coldly. You cannot accept that someone from a primitive species has succeeded where our own people have failed for centuries. Your pride blinds you to reality. My pride. Thexral descended from his balcony, striding across the floor toward the royal box. You speak to me of pride while you parade this pet human around as if he were an equal? You have weakened the throne with this charade. You have shown the Empire that our standards mean nothing. You are unfit to rule. Are you challenging me, Lord Thexral? Yes, his voice carried to every corner of the chamber. I invoke Korval. Single combat for the throne. If you will not uphold Korvathian supremacy, then someone else must. The nobles erupted in shocked whispers. Korval was the ancient rite rarely used where any noble could challenge the current ruler to single combat. The winner became the new leader. The loser died. Velraya stood completely still for a moment. Deho watched her from the floor below, saw the calculations happening behind her golden eyes. She knew what he knew. Thexerol was larger, stronger, and had more combat experience. She would be at a severe disadvantage, but she also knew that refusing the challenge would weaken her position irreparably. Other nobles would see weakness. The throne would be vulnerable. "I accept," she said clearly. The 3 days before the Corval passed like a countdown to execution. Velraya spent her time in preparation, training in private chambers where Deho was not permitted. Ancient tradition demanded that challengers prepare alone, without assistance or advice from others. But Deho was not bound by the same restrictions. He spent those 3 days doing what humans did best when faced with impossible situations. He looked for loopholes. On the second day, he found Pralix in the palace archives. The old scholar looked up from ancient texts when Deho entered. "You should not be here," Pralix said nervously. "The Corval is sacred. Interference is punishable by death." "I am not here to interfere," Deho replied. "I am here to research." "That is not against tradition, is it?" Pralix considered this. "No knowledge-seeking is always permitted. What do you wish to know?" "Everything about the Corval. Every historical record. Every previous challenge. Every rule and exception." The scholar's patterns flickered with interest. "You look for a way to help her. I look for the truth. If there is a way, I will find it." They spent hours digging through records that had not been accessed in centuries. The Corval was ancient, dating back to when the Corvathian Empire was just warring tribes on their homeworld. It had been used 37 times in recorded history. The challenger had won 22 of those confrontations, but there were rules, complex and archaic rules that most nobles had forgotten. Deho read them all, searching for anything that might help. On the third day, just hours before the Corval was scheduled to begin, he found something. A single line in a document that was 4,000 years old. "What is this?" he asked Pralix, pointing to the text. The scholar read it, and his patterns pulsed with surprise. "The decree of the victorious consort. I had forgotten this existed. Explain it." When the trial of houses was created, a provision was added. If a consort completes all 3 challenges successfully, they gain one absolute right: the power to issue a single royal decree that cannot be overruled, even by the sitting monarch. It was meant to prevent rulers from using consorts as puppets who had authority in name only. And this decree can do anything that does not directly contradict existing law or treaty. It is absolute, immediate, and binding. Deho felt his heart racing. Has it ever been used? Not in 3,000 years. No consort has completed the trial in that time. Until now. Deho stood. "Where is the Corval being held?" "The sacred arena, the same place you fought the combat challenge." "But you cannot." Deho was already running. He reached the sacred arena just as the ceremony was beginning. The stands were packed with every noble house in attendance. This was not entertainment like his trial had been. This was deadly serious. The throne itself hung in the balance. Guards tried to stop him at the entrance, but he showed them his new status medallion, the symbol of a consort who had completed the trial. By law, he had the right to attend any official ceremony. Velraya stood on one side of the arena floor, wearing light combat armor. Thexrol stood opposite her, also armored but larger and carrying himself with the confidence of someone who had never lost. Between them, the ancient judge who had presided over Deho's challenges stood ready to officiate. "This is Corval," the judge announced. "Combat to the death for the throne. The rules are absolute. No interference is permitted. The fight ends only when one combatant is dead or yields, and yielding means death in Corval. There is no mercy. There is no surrender. Begin." Thexrol moved immediately, faster than something his size should be able to move. Velraya barely dodged his first strike. They clashed in the center of the arena, and it was clear within seconds that Deho's fears were correct. Thexrol was stronger, more experienced, and fighting with the rage of someone who felt their world order crumbling. Velraya was fast and skilled, but she was fighting defensively, looking for openings that did not exist. Blood appeared on her armor. Then more blood. She was losing. Deho watched from the entrance, his mind racing. He could not interfere directly. That would disqualify Velraya and probably get him killed. But the decree of the victorious consort was not interference. It was legal, right? The question was, could he use it to stop the fight without directly contradicting the Corval laws? He thought back to everything he had learned about Korvathian legal traditions. The Korval was absolute, but it existed within a larger system. The empire itself was based on the principle that power came from the will of the noble houses, and ultimately from the citizens who supported those houses. Velraya fell, blood flowing from a wound in her side. Thexrel raised his weapon for the killing blow. "Stop." Deho's voice rang across the arena. He ran forward onto the floor, stopping at the edge of the combat circle. "I invoke the decree of the victorious consort." The entire arena went silent. Thexrel paused, his weapon still raised. The judge turned to stare at Deho. "You cannot interfere with Korval," the judge said. "I am not interfering. I'm exercising my legal right as a consort who has completed the trial of houses. Check your records. The decree of the victorious consort is absolute and cannot be overruled." Prelix emerged from the crowd carrying an ancient datapad. "He is correct. The law is clear." The judge's patterns flickered with uncertainty. "What is your decree?" "I decree that the matter being decided by this Korval, who should rule the empire, must be determined by vote of the full Korvathian citizenry, not by combat. The Korval is suspended until such vote is completed." The arena erupted in chaos. Nobles shouted in outrage. Thexrel's patterns flared violent red. "This is outrageous. Korval cannot be stopped once begun." "The decree does not stop the Korval," Deho said clearly. "It changes what the Korval is deciding. You are fighting for the throne. I decree that the throne's legitimacy must be determined by the people, not by personal combat. Once the people have voted, if they choose you as their ruler, then you have won without needing to kill Princess Velraya. If they choose her, then the Korval becomes unnecessary. That is manipulation of the law," Thexrel protested. "That is using the law," Deho corrected. "Exactly as it was written. Or are you saying that the ancient traditions are flawed?" The judge consulted with other officials for several minutes. The crowd noise was deafening. Finally, the judge raised his hand for silence. "The decree is legal and binding. The Korval is suspended. A vote of the Korvathian citizenry will be held over the next 3 days. All adults across the empire will be permitted to cast their vote for who they believe should rule. The results will be final and binding." Thexrel threw down his weapon in fury and stormed from the arena, his supporters following. Velraya remained on the ground, blood pooling around her. Medical teams rushed forward immediately. Deho went to her side. "You are going to be fine," he said as doctors began working. "What did you just do?" she asked weakly. "I gave the people a choice. That is something humans believe in, that power should come from those being governed, not from whoever can fight the best. You gambled everything on a vote. What if they choose Thexrel? Then they choose him. But I do not think they will. Not after what you said in the council chamber about choosing justice over convenience. Not after they see that you were willing to die rather than compromise your principles. Over the next 3 days, the campaign happened faster than anything in Korvathian history. Velraya recovered from her injuries and began broadcasting messages to the entire empire. She spoke about reform, about ending exploitative relationships with client states, about building an empire based on cooperation rather than domination. Deho helped her craft those messages, drawing on his diplomatic experience. They included the story of how he had completed the trial of houses, a human, supposedly primitive and weak, proving that worth was not determined by species or tradition, but by action and character. Thexrel campaigned on tradition and strength, promising to restore the empire to its former glory and crush any dissent. His message resonated with conservative nobles but seemed to fall flat with common citizens who had grown tired of endless wars and exploitation. The miners, traders and zealots watched everything with fascination. They had postponed their alliance discussions to see what would happen. If Velraya won, they would negotiate as equals. If Thexrel won, they would probably return to war. On the 3rd day, the votes were counted. The entire empire watched as results came in from billions of citizens across dozens of worlds. Velraya won with 68% support. When the results were announced, Deho stood beside her in the same council chamber where he had proposed the controversial alliance. She looked out at the assembled nobles, many of whom had opposed her, and spoke with quiet authority. "The people have chosen. I will honor their choice by being worthy of it. The empire will change. We will negotiate with our client states as partners, not subjects. We will value merit over birth. We will welcome new ideas. even from species we once dismissed as primitive. She turned to look at Deho. And we will remember that strength comes in many forms. Thexeral stood from his position. For a moment, Deho thought he would challenge the results. Instead, the Lord bowed stiffly. The people have spoken. I accept their judgment. His patterns were dim with barely controlled rage, but he was bound by